How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. A lot of people know that Bitcoin's price goes up over time in US dollar terms. And it's kind of crazy when you start looking at some of the numbers. Like this chart's gone around on Twitter a lot. The price of a house in Bitcoin going from 664 Bitcoin back in 2016 to 45 Bitcoin in 2020 to 6 Bitcoin in 2024. And it starts to get your imagination going. Okay, where is Bitcoin going to be in the future? Will one house be equivalent to one Bitcoin? And it got me wondering, houses are an appreciating asset. I wonder what other items that actually become less expensive over time look like priced in Bitcoin. That TV that you bought that you just had to have because it was a 42-inch flat screen. How many Bitcoin did that cost you? And maybe this gives us some indication as to where we should put our money now. And I have a very interesting metric to look at the end, which I think will be the most impactful, which is how much is your time worth in Bitcoin over time, which is going to be really interesting. I broke down 3 different assets that we can look at here: TVs, cars, and your time. So we're going to go through each of those in addition to this Bitcoin and houses example 2. Now, before we get started, if you do want to trade cryptocurrency, there is a link to Margex underneath the video. You can sign up in just like 30 seconds because there's no KYC, which means you don't have to put in a bunch of personal information. You can start trading very quickly. And there's also a link to Blowfin and CoinW as well. In case for some reason you don't want to try Margex, you can try one of those other exchanges. Now, let's take a look at what is a Bitcoin worth. Now, obviously, all of us have seen the chart of Bitcoin over time, right? It becomes more and more valuable as time goes on in US dollar terms, and everyone looks at that pretty often. But there's an awesome website called Priced in Bitcoin, and it shows you how much Bitcoin is worth over time, priced in a bunch of different assets. So maybe the US dollar. If you look at Bitcoin versus the US dollar on the day, it's negative. The dollar's negative 2.35%. On the week, it's negative 9%. On the month, the year to date, it's negative 34%. If you had held dollars for the last 5 years, you'd be down 89% versus just holding Bitcoin. You can look at other fiat currencies. You can look at precious metals, commodities, and all this. So I want to look, again, at assets that people don't typically look at, right? As I said, a lot of people might look at this: the price of a house based in Bitcoin, because this chart or this picture has gone around Twitter a lot. And it just shows you, okay, houses are appreciating assets. You can see that the price of homes goes up significantly. And people always talk about how it's unaffordable to buy a home, partly because of interest rates, but also because the price of homes just goes up because of inflation. But when you consider how easy it was to buy a Bitcoin in 2016 versus buying a Bitcoin now, that's actually become a much more difficult thing. A lot of people are willing to make housing payments, right? Maybe $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month because, you do need a place to live, but they're not willing to invest $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 a month into Bitcoin. Most people can't do that. But that got me thinking, okay, the things that people do put their money towards, fun things, right? How much is that throwing you off of your Bitcoin goals? And how much has Bitcoin gone up versus some of these other things that we seem to need? We want flat screen TVs. We want fast cars. So let's take a look at this. This is the cost of a Model 3 performance over the last 5 years versus Bitcoin. So in 2019, a Model 3 performance cost about $64,000. Again, this is just like a Tesla Model 3. Their fastest version cost $64,000, and there have been some spikes, but I took it right at the beginning of the year. 2019, $64,000. The price of Bitcoin was around $4,000 then. In 2021, the price of a Model 3 performance went down a little bit to $55,000, and Bitcoin's price was right around $34,000 then. Now, with the tax credit in mind, the price of a Model 3 performance is about $47,500, or without the tax credit, it's about the same as it was in 2021. Again, it spiked up in 2022, then came back down. But the price of Bitcoin has been going up. So the cost in Bitcoin of a Model 3 was 16.2. We can make this chart again. What was it? This one. We can make it with a performance Model 3 if we wanted to. 16.2 Bitcoin. In 2021, it cost 1.61 Bitcoin. Now it costs 0.7 Bitcoin. a couple weeks ago or a month ago when Bitcoin was priced at 75,000, it would have just cost 0.63 Bitcoin. So over time, it makes more sense to invest in something like Bitcoin because, yeah, you could buy a significant amount of these Model 3s if you had just put the $64,000 into Bitcoin. Right? If you're going to buy it in cash, for example, if you put it into Bitcoin, now you could afford 16.2 Bitcoin, or you would have bought 16.2 Bitcoin, which would be the equivalent of, how many is that? You could now buy 22.8 Tesla Model 3s at today's current price. Now, this isn't even the worst thing that you could have bought. Let's take a look at TVs. A lot of people love TVs, right? You're watching media, and it does feel nice to have a nice, big, high-definition TV on your wall. I think it used to be a bigger deal. Now, the prices of TVs have come down significantly. There's actually a cool calculator that I used called in2013dollars.com. You can price different televisions, and it shows you how much they've devalued over time. They devalue significantly every year, sometimes all the way up to 25%, sometimes as low as just a few percent. In 2021, in 2021, it looks like they actually became 6% more expensive, but over time they generally get less and less expensive. So in 2014, a TV cost, let's say you got a TV that was $1,000. Now that same TV would cost like $275. You probably got like a 42-inch screen or something like that. Now that's kind of on the smaller side for a lot of people. That's not their main TV. Maybe they have that in a bedroom or something. But that same $1,000 TV would just cost $276 now. 2019, you could buy a $1,000 TV. That would cost $684 now. Like the same equivalent TV. And it might even be cheaper than that because I'm not sure they're selling 2014 TVs anymore unless it's like at a garage sale. But just the same technology would cost a lot less. Now, the price of Bitcoin was a lot less expensive back in 2014, $806. 2019, $3,950. Now it's $67,000. So the Bitcoin per $1,000 TV, you would have bought about 1.24 Bitcoin if you had just bought a Bitcoin, or if you had just bought Bitcoin instead of a TV back then. So instead of in your third bedroom buying that flat screen TV that you didn't need, you could have just bought 1.24 Bitcoin. 2019, you could have bought a quarter of a Bitcoin. Now you could buy 0.0149 Bitcoin with that $1,000. Now, if you had bought Bitcoin instead of that TV, and you want to buy that TV now, that $276 TV, you could buy 300 of them with that 1.24 Bitcoin that you had. Or you could buy 25 2019 TVs that now cost $685. So it is interesting when you just look at putting your money, your stored labor, in an asset that appreciates instead of one that becomes devalued. Now, of course, I'm not telling you not to buy any cars or any TVs because these are things that, you can generally get enjoyment out of. But it is just something to consider when you're thinking, okay, do I need the 85-inch TV? Or could I just get a 65-inch and then maybe put the rest into Bitcoin? Do I need the Model 3 Performance new? Or could I buy one or 2 years old that's maybe $30,000, $35,000 instead of $48,000, right? And then probably the craziest thing, the craziest chart of them all, we have your wages. Okay, the average wage has gone up, obviously, in the US. Back in 2016, this is coming from, let's see where this is. This is coming from the Fred Economic Data, or the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. The average wage, according to this, of all employees in the private sector was $25.38 an hour, $25 an hour in 2016. Then it moved up to 26.73, 28.44. Now it says the average wage is 34.5. That seems high to me, but this is the private sector, so maybe it changes a little bit. I couldn't find one for all sectors, but let's just go with it. This is the Bitcoin price over time. $434 back in 2016 in that bear market. And then 2018, $15,000. In 2020, $7,500. 2022, about $40,000. Now about $67,000. If you took 1 week's wages, 1 week, I guess just 1 week wage, in Bitcoin, you could have had about 2.34 Bitcoin. Okay, so you make $25 an hour times 40 hours, that's about $1,000. You go put that into Bitcoin, that would have gotten you about 2.34 Bitcoin. Back in 2018, it would have bought you about 0.07 Bitcoin. 2020, 0.15. And this, again, is just the average. Now, let's say you had put that 1 week's wage into Bitcoin. How many weeks would this buy you now? 154 weeks back in 2016. So basically, you spent 1 week working and you get 154 weeks off. That's amazing. Okay, 2018, 1 week would have bought you now 4.5 weeks. In 2020, it would have bought you 9 weeks. In 2022, 1.69 weeks. Now, 1 week would buy you 1 week, obviously. Now, why do I even bring up this last chart? I bring it up because money really is just a store of your economic value. So if you do something that's less valuable, you still get money, but it's less than if you were doing something very valuable. And it's basically just a way to store that economic value over time. Instead of just getting goods right away that could perish, you can save some of that economic value you did a week ago, 2 weeks ago, a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and you can bring it into the future without it spoiling, right? Or being wasted. So you can put your money into something like Bitcoin that is a better money, and as more and more people adopt it, well, it becomes more valuable, and then your past economic value is becoming more valuable as well, right? Because people are basically paying you more to get what you have, right? Which is the Bitcoin. They want it so badly because they think it will help their economic value, their stored value, appreciate more in the future as well. So if you're earlier on the train, well, people will pay you more. Basically just increasing your old hourly rates. Another way to think about this is if you put this hourly wage as $25.38 times 40, so the weekly wage, into Bitcoin, that's the equivalent of an hourly rate of about $3,918 or $120 in 2018, $254, $53. So you are actually making much more if you store your economic value in something that appreciates, and it makes sense. Now, let me know your thoughts on all this underneath the video. Do you think this is helpful to see different items priced in Bitcoin that don't appreciate, like a car or a TV? Does it make you focused a little bit more on saving and investing? Or do you think it just makes you feel a little bit more FOMO? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know if you want me to do more of these videos as well. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Again, you can check out MargeX or CoinW Blowfin underneath the video in case you want to start trading, and I will see you in the next video.